So let's see if this works. I'm up in the middle of the night. It's 3:40 a.m. on May the 18th, Tuesday. In this light, I have a dim light on. Yeah, it's kind of a red light. Um, and I thought, well, why don't I just try and make a video? Because I am in a lot of pain, and that's from... Okay, is this gonna stop recording again or what? You know? This looks like it's dark. I get darker. Alright, whatever. I mean, gotta go with the flow. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go with the flow an awful lot of the time. Not that it's working for me. I don't know if it's working for me. So I went with my friend to her friend's place because that friend wanted a roommate, and I would have had to have given up my beautiful gray cat. So that was out of the question for me. Plus all the things that were payment for what they said. My beautiful Finley, who died in January, his son and the son's wife decided to give me some of the furniture as payment for the 10 years of looking after their dad. And on the 26th of February, I suffered quite a bit from their activity with me. I was attacked verbally. I was attacked, furniture was thrown at me by the son on the 26th. And he erupted into a rage and then called his wife to get her to come in and deal with me. So she uttered words like, you fucking crazy bitch, get out, get out, get out. And she said, I'll give you half an hour to get all your stuff out. Well, that wasn't reasonable, and indeed it took me 5 hours that night to get all my stuff out from Finley's place, which had to be emptied by the end of that month. And I would have done it by the end of the month, but they wouldn't grant me the 2 days or the 1 day. That would have been easier on me. So bringing over the stove that was Finley's friend's at one time Magnus's stove, and Magnus died before Finley died, and Finley and his friend Basil were on the phone, and they were saying that Magnus's death was highly suspicious. Well, it's May the 18th, in the middle of the night, and I think that Finley's death on the 7th of January is highly suspicious. So I really have learned to not trust the medical system at all. I'm gonna fix this a bit because it's just not straight or whatever. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know. Oh, what the hell. Anyway. So a lot of stuff in this small apartment now. I did get rid of some of my furniture so that I could have some of Finley's furniture. And, of course, going to this friend's place of my friend Carol, I would have lost all those pieces of furniture. And a very large painting. Lots of stuff. I mean, I would have lost all of it because there's no place to put it. It was a very small room she wanted to let to a potential roommate. But that wasn't going to happen on her end because one thing was the issue of the cat. She wouldn't have a cat in her place. And I cannot really do without an animal. In fact, I hope I can get a dog this year. I'd like to have, the companionship of animals, my fur babies. I am maternal in that way. Even though I could never have children after the accident because those organs were pushed over to one side. And it does show in my body. All throughout this time, with Dr. Krause's lie on my file, I've suffered hit after hit after hit. A stress, which is the result from the things that I had to endure because of the lie. It started actually way back when I was given the idea in the early 2000s with the pain that I had to see a hypnotist. I went one day and then another day I went and the intern who was a woman who was learning hypnotism through the two married hypnotists at the Queen Elizabeth. She was acting angrily towards me, and later on to the person who was her teacher, the male hypnotist, the older man. I said hi to him in this cafeteria-like place in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, and he just looked at me stone-faced as if, how dare you speak to me, you underling, you you schizophrenic, delusional human being. No, you see, Dr. Krause put on my file after I came off the psych drugs in 2001 that I was a schizophrenic because I couldn't see the injuries back then. But he did say initially, and with that declaration that he'd put that lie on my medical file, knowing then that it was a lie, he said, you were obviously misdiagnosed from the very beginning. But since we can't see these injuries, and they're going to want to see, touch, feel, whatever, find these injuries, well, they're very apparent right now, but they have surfaced over time. because they were deeply internal, and now they've risen to the surface. And it's just been so hard for me to be patient and have faith and to not react to these people who cause me such stress, because the stress just raises the cortisol, the cortisol in my body to amplify these flare-ups in my body. And so it was yesterday that Marie tried to escape me while I was outside, whereas the day before she was speaking with me quite happily. But that night I saw her with another French woman, because Marie is French, but she speaks English very well. This French woman was talking to her, and as I was saying my farewell, going back inside the building, I said, "Bonne soirée, les dames." And I saw her look up at me without a word, as she always did or in this summertime, with this, steely face, or this like, "How dare you speak to me?" And she lives on the upper floors, and it's the upper floors where this woman, Leah Sokrin, I'll say her name, Leah and Hetty now knows the truth, but at some point in 2018, the two of them were really aggressive to me. But it was Leah Sokrin who took the, almost like a campaign. And I saw her knock on my neighbor's door across the hall, and that was Sophie at the time. And after Leah left, Sophie said to me, "She's crazy," meaning that Leah was crazy. And in fact, Leah is a bit of a nutter. She's a fabricator of stories. She lies, and she thinks she's in her divine right to warn the upper floors, that there's a dangerous schizophrenic downstairs. I am not a schizophrenic. I never was a schizophrenic. On those drugs in my 30s, I was labeled first bipolar, which was wrong, because I was never bipolar. They gave me Prozac at that time, which now is known to cause suicides. And young people have suicided on Prozac. And I almost died because of an overdose on Prozac and some other drugs. But it was the Prozac that made me, in my mind, able to do that thing that I just cannot do, even though I've got immense, intense pain. Spinal damage. I've got spinal damage. I wish you could hear my back crack. See, I'm not in a rocking chair right now, but I really wish you could hear. Oops. There you go. I wish you could hear my back crack. I'm really so fed up. So freaking fed up. I'm fed up of these lies. I'm fed up of the lies that, obviously my very own sister, Janet, propagates. I know that when I met with her and my half-brother in 2011 on the day, December 28th, that my half-brother, Donald, looked back at me like, I was a crazy person when they were leaving. My sister started her very easy, I have to say it, manipulation of just tearing up, crying these tears. She's done it for years. I've seen her do it before. I mean, she's a redhead, and redheads are, well, they're very different to the rest of us. I wasn't a redhead like she was. I did have red in my brownish hair, but I never had the freckles or the disposition, the sensitivity to sunlight, or the sensitivity to different things, or the quick to anger, the upset, and the physical attacks that she would do, and she did them. So I've kind of lived with what you would say a lot of quote unquote devil energy. And it's enough, I'm 59 now. I turned 59 in April. And that's 1 year from 60. So how much more time do I have? Do I have 3 decades to get me to 89? I don't know. But it's over most of my life now that I've had to experience lies and entire fabrications of awful gossip, vile gossip, stories, and I don't know what kind of stories that Marie heard, but she was afraid, and she was disgusted by my presence. So she, with her walker, she made it past me, and Irma, who was sitting down there speaking with me affably and quite happily. Now, I suppose, Irma is going to be warned. Oh, no, don't talk to that person. You know what a schizophrenic does, They eat people's eyes and tear off people's heads, and, oh, they're so unpredictable, they could kill you. Well, I am not a schizophrenic, like Dr. Crouse wrote on my bloody file, medical file. I am not. And being with Finley, as he aged, and as I noted that, on his forehead was sunken in. It's like he had no temporal lobes left. So talk about trying to reason with somebody who doesn't have temporal lobes, So it was hard on me. I came to be with him, to care for him and cook for him, for us, and as a companion to him. But it became more heavy on me as he became more unreasonable and combative. But I loved the man. He was a wonderful man. He had great integrity and would never lash out in anger. His son, on the other hand, because he had gifted me, the son had gifted me Finley's bedroom set, and I asked the person who was going to take away the dressing table to wait on that. Finley John, he just pulled at his hair and started screaming at me. And later, neighbors across the hall, they said that they could hear Finley John and that they wanted to go in there and protect me. And then they also heard Finley John's wife, Dominique, screaming at me, "Get out, get out, get out." Now, she had said, "I'll give you half an hour to get all your stuff out." And I knew that that was totally unreasonable. She said, "Well, if you don't do that in half an hour, I'm calling the police." So I thought that actually was kind of a good option, because I thought, for sure I would have a reasonable person in at least one police officer, and I found out I did. Now, these were 2 women police officers who came to tell me to go back to my home, which is here, but I hardly ever lived here. It was more of a storage place, and it's still, packed with things. Now, why is it packed with things? Well, I will be moving again, but who knows where? Who knows where? I mean, Corinna has come to my rescue again, as she did 12 years ago. But here's the thing, is that my back hurts so much. So very much. And with all the stresses and so on, I mean, it's so tense. So, I know that my lease ends here on September 1st, and I've told people that I will no longer be here after September 1st. And some people have said, "Well, I'll really miss you." Yeah, like Sandra Casey or Irma, they said, they'll miss me, which was rather nice. And I know Sandra upstairs, she'll miss me. She said she'll miss me. I mean, we've found a rapport that has been there for several years. Even before she moved upstairs, she was downstairs here, and we got along really well. So, Maud and her son, they know I'm not crazy. Sandra and her son, kind of adopted. Not legally, but he acts like her son more than her real son does. Anyway, so, I would think that Chris knows I'm not crazy. So, getting these hits all the way up until May 2021. I mean, what does Creator God think that I can actually endure? What do my ancestors on the other side who witnessed from the other side, and I'm sure they watch us, I'm sure they do, who saw how much I suffered in initial withdrawal off those psych drugs. It was so hellish. So much pain, with these underlying injuries. Of course, I was in a great deal of pain, but the stories which don't get into mainstream media, because mainstream media it has been given money by its advertisements and so on to big pharma has had their boot on the media to keep the truth about what psych drugs do out of the public sphere. And now we've learned too that government is in league with big pharma as well. I mean, when we're talking about the manufacture of so-called vaccines, which, anybody with half a brain would be very skeptical about. Although people do hear the mainstream narrative on their televisions, and it's just like bombardment about how everybody needs to be vaccinated, you know. But the vaccines haven't been really tested. They're being tested on human beings anyway. So here we are with our governments not wanting the truth about what psych drugs do to people out in the public sphere. So those who do not have physical injuries but have been given psych drugs for a certain length of time and have come off them, and especially with the newer drugs, which are far more toxic than the ones I guess I was on in my 30s, because I have never seen the amount of suffering that comes with the newer drugs, you know, in my own experience. But I was in so much pain and initial withdrawal because of the injuries and because of the toxic effects of these drugs. So our livers were affected. So there'd be this great sense of doom. You know, the liver is our filter to filter out the stuff that needs to be out of our bodies. So on a toxic load, say, okay, for me, I was polydrugged on these psych drugs and different combinations of them to try to fix me. My chemical imbalance, and a chemical imbalance is it's a misnomer. In fact, it's a total fabrication. It's a myth. It's a lie. There's no blood test. Anyway, so I would scream cry into pillows on the floor. Scream cry. And I remember one woman who's a painter years ago, she was saying that she would scream cry coming off those psych drugs. So it's really kind of touch and go, you know. Again, we in these communities on Facebook who help people to survive the long-term effects of withdrawal of these psych drugs, to survive them, they post those alerts of people who have been in the groups who have committed suicide because they couldn't take the pain anymore. So, you know, it does kind of tug on me that I've had so much pain for so long, and here again, I'm in pain again. Can you hear that? I can hear that. I hope it can pick up on this device, you know? Because it's painful, right? I won't pause this. I'll keep on going because I don't really, you know, what comes next for me is a move, no matter what. I have no reason to stay here anymore because Finley is gone. He's on the other side. He died. He died, and he was the reason I was here. So yeah, I took a financial hit because he was a big help financially to me. But he could never, ever afford to get me the lawyers that I need to combat this lie on my medical file. And yeah, I'll mention my family doctor again. um, who got me a referral to try to get this label of schizophrenia off my file. And he was a grand disappointment to me, this psychiatrist, because, you know, my family doctor said, you need a psychiatrist. You need to see a psychiatrist to get this label off your file. And this psychiatrist, no. He wasn't listening. No, he wasn't listening, and he was angry at me for being late. But you know, when you've got injuries to your body, it's hard to move. It's hard to get places. It's hard to get to places on time. If you could see, I'm rolling my fingers now, but the camera doesn't have that much of a wide view. Ah, there's my cat. He just crawled out from under somewhere, leaving here because I am continuing to talk, but he is a lovely, very intelligent cat. He's a wonderful companion. Yeah. Animals. I love them. Yeah, I remember this lady on the second floor here. She moved in, in recent years, and I'm sure she knows I'm not crazy. No, the Sokran lie has infiltrated the third and fourth floors. We have 4 floors on this edifice, which used to be a school. And anyway, yeah. What was it she was saying? I've forgotten. That this is a confession that I have to say is that my doctor I finally allowed my doctor the power to help me, and all he knew was pills. So for the last, now I think it's 5 years, I've been on pain medication. And he allowed the dose to go up to 600 milligrams of pregabalin, which is the generic of Lyrica. I haven't been on the Lyrica or the pregabalin for 5 years, but I've been on Flexeril for 5 years. A friend of mine, Gina, she assured me that these wouldn't give me an altered state of mind, but it is true that pregabalin or Lyrica affects your memory. So yeah, I gained the white hair after being with Finley. I gained the weight after being with Finley. I think it is slowly coming off, but now there's something to do with my muscle tone. Well, I'm a year from 16. What happens, right? You lose your muscle tone. But I'm losing muscle tone. It's more to the muscle relaxant. Been on a muscle relaxant for 5 years. And I think the Lyrica for probably 3. But in the only recent months, I learned that my doctor had allowed me to go up to 200 milligrams 3 times a day. So that's 600 milligrams, which is the limit. You can't go beyond that. Well, yeah. So I've heard testimonies. People were saying that they're so glad to be off the pregabalin or the Lyrica because it was affecting their memory. So yeah, I've taken a hit to my memory. So whatever the person, my neighbor Elizabeth on the second floor, why I was talking about her, it's gone. Because, you know, I am in a lot of pain. Heck, can you hear that? Ugh, can you hear that? I left the previous family doctor, who now I have suspicions about as being one of those nasty, nasty medical doctors. That's kind of a euphemism. Maybe I'll get to the point on that, but my real issue with him is, you know, he would laugh at me. And he never would refer me to get help for these injuries because he didn't think I had them. Yeah, and then there was also Leah Sokrin in 2018, and the date is clear in my mind. I've got that. Even with memory problems, it's very clear. It was March the 23rd, 2018, when Leah Sokrin screamed at the top of her lungs like a little child. And she did it more than once, and she did it without any fear in her eyes. She just did it because she had heard someone out back who had installed herself on our swing with her budgies in a cat carrier and her baby in a pram and her 2 or 3-year-old little boy, or maybe 4-year-old, because he was somewhat intelligent. He was trying to get his mother to leave, you know, but she was being very stubborn and slow about it. I was the one who the neighbors on this side, on the lower floor, had relied upon, because when there are people making noise on the swing that we have out back there, and they're not residents here, they really do have to leave. I mean, if we call the police will escort them off. So this young woman with her budgies in a cat carrier had just, you know, installed herself there. And I got a call to go and tell her to leave, and you know, started screaming at the top of her lungs. You know, no one listens when I say, look, hey, I've got a broken back. You know, don't do that. You know, it hurts, right? No one listens. Yeah, it's like when I went to that doctor at the Jewish, and his name was Joel Paris. Yeah, Joel Paris. Who the social worker who saw me before the day I saw him had told me, well, you know, you might get him, so you know, you don't want him, because we know in this community I'm in, within social work and psychiatry, we know what kind of a doctor he is, and you don't want him. But I said, well, I'll take my chances. Maybe I'll get a good doctor. Well, I didn't. I got him. And I told him, I said, you know, that Dr. Krause had said, you were obviously misdiagnosed from the very beginning. Didn't hear that at all. Sorry, I'm picking at my nails. I'm in a lot of pain, even though I took the pills again. I guess it's my morning pills, hoping that I'll sleep in today, because I'll need quite a bit of sleep. I've got friends who know that I'm not crazy. lots of friends who know I'm not crazy and that I'm injured, physically injured. Oh, I gotta lift my arms again. Ah. Oh. Yeah, talk about muscle tone, huh? Just relax. I know I've got a lot of work to do. And you know, I also have to reiterate that I'm in a big battle. A big, big battle. Hey, let's look at that again. Is my wrist that big anymore? Maybe I am losing some weight. Okay. You see, this ceiling of silence that so many of us survivors of psychiatry cannot crack with our testimonies of great harm. So, you know, first of all, being on the drugs, your cognition is compromised and you're not really aware of it. So, you know, you lose your brain power and you act crazy. Oh yeah, this is something in my 30s that I did. Because it was Carolyn Setlakwe. She was my friend, and she thought that putting makeup on me was fun, and we'd, you know, go clubbing. I couldn't feel my body at the time. So, you know, I'd hobnob with those other people who were people I'd met on, I guess, 4 East of the Montreal General, where I was for a time. That's where I met Carolyn. Well, I started to take instruction from her of how to do makeup, but you know, before this happened to me, before I started to be polydrugged, I'd see women with garish red makeup, like blush on their cheeks. Well, wasn't it what was seen of me? And friends then had told me, you know, you wore garish red makeup. You know, it was brash on your face, and your hair the way you owned. It's like, and the things that you'd wear, you know, Christy, things that you'd wear, like really short skirts. You know, how could you wear such a short skirt? You're so totally oblivious. So yeah, this the other part of my 30s too was the laughter and the ridicule from classmates. When I did my second stint at McGill in education that my mother paid for again. So there's an awful lot that on this surface level you'd see of me. They'd think it was me, but it's not me. Okay, it was the drugs. The drugs made me that way. The drugs make every person who's on these drugs that way. Crazy. And ridiculous. You know, a sight to behold. So, my 30s are very different from now because I accepted this idea that I was mentally ill. I couldn't feel my body, and my brain was really badly affected, like Catherine Horton, Dr. Catherine Horton. Keep forgetting to say doctor. Yeah, she's a doctor. She was a particle physicist, and who chose journalism. And she's got a YouTube channel, but I suppose she's also ridiculed and vilified. You know, those people who like us, who are truth tellers about what's going on. I'm not being gang stalked. That's not happening to me. I don't have a lot of that other stuff that some people have, and I don't believe at all that I've got energy weapons being thrown at me. I'm not wearing a tinfoil hat or anything like that. I am saying that psychiatric medications are neurotoxins. And on these neurotoxins, many people commit suicide. You know, but you know, this is the thing. This is how far-reaching it is because we have people in prison who are only there because of something criminal they did while they were on these neurotoxins, psychiatric medications. And yeah, they say, oh, this is the thing to do, is to give them psychiatric medications to help them with their mental illness. But the medications are creating the mental illness. Lots of people know that. Oh yeah, I had these conversations. Well, you see, Finley, my Finn, died on the 7th of January. You know, and that very day, that same day, his son came to the apartment to start taking stuff out of it. Anyway, I had quite a bit of time to communicate with Finley's son, just Finley's son, not the wife. Although I kind of met her before, just briefly, but it was pleasant exchanges. But of course I did something very bad on the 26th of February, right? No, I didn't. I thought that I would have money to put these things in storage, but what I didn't tell Finley John was that I felt that I'd have the money to put these things in storage, but it wasn't available to me. Well, that's it. So, you know, he was really frustrated. Yeah. And anyway, I had been speaking with Finley John from, mid-January towards the end of February. So quite a space of time where we could communicate from time to time. Although because of the pandemic, the plandemic, COVID, whoops. Anyway, you know what's funny? Another segue. I was needing to open up a bank app, and I brought this phone that I'm using right now to the bank, and I had to access their Wi-Fi and grant access to their Wi-Fi for the teller to help me to reopen the app, because I had a new bank card, because during the rapid changeover here, meaning getting everything out of Finley's place and saving some of the stuff for me, getting the gifted furniture for the time that I'd been with their dad. My bank card got lost or misplaced. It's somewhere, but I got a new bank card so I could get money, for heaven's sake. Anyway, so I cannot find the brochure that came with the Videotron. to key in the code to get this on the, get my Wi-Fi on this device. So I might not even be uploading this. I don't know. Anyway, I can't find the code to get this thing back connected to the Wi-Fi. So I can't play one of my favorite games. Is like, it's a G5 game. It's one of my favorite games. I like hidden object games. Anyway, another segue. Yeah, no. Finley, John, and I were talking about how psych drugs affect people. And he said, oh yeah, he and his wife knew that these drugs were creating zombies. And there are more and more people who are zombies because of these drugs. These drugs are causing it. Finley John knew that. He understood that. And his wife apparently understood that too. But nonetheless, okay, so she called me a crazy bitch on the 26th of February. So I have all these dates, different attacks. 2011 was December 28th when I said my final goodbyes to my brother, my half-brother, and my sister. The one who actually created this mess for me. She's the one who created this. I didn't. Because these drugs disable the brain. So much so that I couldn't feel severe injuries. Severe injuries. I never needed my face broken because I had whiplash. So the medical people, yeah, I'll do this for a while. The medical people, they're really corrupt. Or do they know that they are doing wrong or doing harm? I don't. Some, I think, are malevolent, malicious, very bad people. But, my family doctor, I think he's a good young man. I think he's good. But, it's like what he said to me. All he knows is pills. That's all he knows. That's all he learned from learning to become a doctor all those years. All he learned was pills. He confessed that to me. But I know that that's true because big pharma, with their billions, not just their billions, their trillions, they fund these schools where these doctors learn this stuff. So in a lot of ways, they're victims too. Not that I'm a victim. I choose not to call myself that. I think I've been very brave to endure all this time with this heinous lie on my medical file. And then, this added stress where Dr. Joel Paris made his report where he said, she was probably bipolar in her 30s. Or she was obviously bipolar in her 30s. No, Joel Paris, that's what the drugs do. That's what your writing prescriptions do. So all you guys have got really, really bad karma, I tell you. Even though you're oblivious, I think you got really bad karma because you've harmed a lot of people on these drugs. You've really harmed a lot of people. These drugs are chemical restraints There's sedatives. You can ply somebody with enough of these drugs to make them catatonic. You can paralyze their bodies. You can, well, that's true, you know. They gave me something after that attempted suicide on Prozac, plus other drugs that were given to me. I took all the bottles, plus the milk, and my first husband, who I'd known since kindergarten, rushed me to the hospital, and I got my stomach pumped. But I was in a 2-day coma. My sister says. So, can that be true? Well, remains to be seen. I do know that I was in a coma, and from time to time I'd open up my eyes and there would be my sister sitting with me or sitting for me, but never my mother. But my mother was, you know, she was a basket case. But you see, she was pretty intoxicated on the Valium. And I was telling Carol tonight when we were sitting outside, you know, I asked her to sit with me for a bit, you know, and I'd bring that other heavy bag of cans inside after I'd seen her off in her car. Saying to her that the drugs that why is this so hard to talk about? Because it's really close to the bone, okay? And Carol didn't even want to hear it again. But I told Carol that my mother had been on it is a psychiatric medication. Well, diazepam, Valium, is also used for injuries or whatever. But you can get sky high on those. Really. Like, wow. And yeah, I would think that Mom would love that state of disconnection or a high. Anyway, but okay, so I was telling Carol that Mom had been prescribed it when it was first issued in 1963, when I would have been a year old. And the story was that when my sister was 19, and I guess I was 17, yeah, had to be 17. My sister was 19. She had one boyfriend in one province and another boyfriend in another province, and she overdosed on pills, and she was taken to the Montreal General Hospital, and she was in a 4-hour long coma. I was perfectly sane at 17, but I was sitting with my mother who had been on Valium from the time I was a year old, mother's little helper, you know. And so she would have been on that 16 full years. So I said to Carol what my mother actually was able, oh, is that the right word, able? What she said. She said this. She said, I wish my sister, would just die, because she was in a 4-hour coma, 4-hour long coma. We were sitting in the waiting area, waiting for news, because it was, you know, touch and go during that time. So Mom said, I wish she would just die because I want to go home. The reason she said that was she wanted a cigarette and she wanted a drink. And, heck, when I was 27, there's another thing that Mom did. So she was on it 26 years on the Valium. We were in Westville because I had left Quebec to go to the family home because it was then vacant in Westville, the old house, the yellow house on the bad turn, it was called. And Mom came to visit me, so that's when I was beginning to be drugged. It was after the accident, so I was on some heavy duty something or other. Couldn't feel the injuries. I knew something was wrong, but because my left leg would start to, jump or tremble. Anyway, Mom was in the car she was driving, and these kids were yelling by the side of a store and pointing, I think, with a flashlight or some kind of light to this kitten who was wailing. Obviously, her hind legs had been rolled over by a vehicle. And I was in the front seat with Mom. We were the only two people in the car. And I don't know what went through her mind. She stopped the car. And the kids were happy about that. And there were cars behind her. Well, I know what she was thinking. She was thinking, oh yes, my driving school instruction was that you never have all these cars backing up behind you. Could she see what I had seen before we approached the cat? I saw the cat ahead of us, and I said, Mom, stop the car. But she stopped it only for a moment. I don't know what was in her brain. Oh my God. And then the youngsters by the side of the road started waving their arms and screaming, yelling, don't, because, more cars would just come and roll over the cat in the road. Horrific things like that, because, what Valium does to people's brains. Valium does make women crave alcohol. It does. Now, my friend Howard would say, well, Valium is something they use to get people off alcohol because they are similar in the way they hit the brain. But I know there are so many out there who know that when you give your mother, when your mother is prescribed Valium, she craves alcohol. Diazepam. Now, what was I given in my 30s? And what did I do in my 30s? And what happened to me in my 30s? I really do have an awful lot to talk about. I've been through so much. yeah, on this superficial level, um, my cousins who refused to speak with me, my two cousins, Catherine and Susan, who just refused to ever speak to me ever again. Because of, I don't know, what must have happened is that Mom was probably calling up her sister whenever I'd have something, Obviously, she'd be crying to somebody in Nova Scotia from the South Shore, from Montreal, which is Chateauguay. From her house in Chateauguay, she'd be on the phone to her sister in Glasgow, Nova Scotia, crying about all these things that her daughter Christy had done. And wasn't it touch and go for her in 1992 when she decided to overdose and almost die? Now, I would never do that. But people do that. And I did try that on Prozac. What I have learned is that they've relabeled it with a new name and they're selling it to women in the UK for, marketing it to women in the UK with postpartum depression. I don't remember the name that they call it, but they've relabeled it and they're selling it. Another thing that I know that I have to repair here is that I got the drug wrong. The one that would cause morbidity in the extremities of people with diabetes is Jardiance. Trintellix is an antidepressant, so it wasn't the drug that would be given to diabetics, and it's not the drug, I don't think, that causes morbidity in the extremities, but we have yet to see, so who knows what that does. It is a new drug. Lots of new drugs are out for psychiatry. All right. Oh, yeah, and this, they've got so many more disorders. So, they make a new drug, these pharmaceutical companies, and the first thing the psychiatrists are asked to do is to find a market for it. So, yeah, they do. They find a new label for something, like probably, is it called obsessional defiance disorder or something like that? That's probably a mixture of two there. But, any kind of new chemical, they'll find a use for it. Like I said, thalidomide that left children without their limbs in the early 1960s because it was marketed to young mothers who were having morning sickness. So that's what thalidomide was supposed to help with. It was mothers who didn't want to have their morning sickness. And then, kids who are my age now, who I've actually seen around the area where I now live, without arms. I saw somebody without arms at all, and my age, but this was quite a few years back when my friend Jamie was still alive. Now, he was a Mormon, and he was called schizophrenic. psychotic, psycho, and he was given a drug he said was Modicate as an injection into his buttocks every month, plus other drugs. But he was so happy when he stopped the Zyprexa, because then he could start losing weight, because Zyprexa was making him fat. Yes, they gave me Zyprexa in my 30s, and I got really fat. Yeah, my first husband, Glenn, would remember that. I got up to 200 pounds. But here's the thing, too, for me right here, is that, I've kind of passed the 200-pound mark at 59. I don't know, maybe I've lost more weight than I've thought, but, Finley, the one I loved and cared for, the old man, 34 years my senior, who hailed from Glasgow, Scotland, who still had that Scottish voice, but, also that Scottish integrity. Whenever we'd have an altercation or some kind of problem, the way that he would say he was sorry or try to mend things was to go out and buy a lemon meringue pie. I don't know if I've ever eaten as many lemon meringue pies as I did when I was with Finley in my life, but it's my nemesis. That was a loving gesture by him. But I noticed when he liked lemon meringue pie too, obviously. I mean, he wouldn't get it for just me. He would enjoy it too. And I noticed whenever he'd have lemon meringue pie, I couldn't reason with him. All that sugar. And then, too, he would take Werther's candy. He would take Reasons. He would always say, you don't need a reason to have a reason. So we'd eat these chocolate toffees, or chocolate-covered toffees, and he'd eat Werther's. Whether they were the hard Werther's or the soft Werther's, he'd have them. But in the last years I was with him, he didn't have it so much, nor did we have lemon meringue pies, really. But I got pretty big, yeah. I didn't really even pay attention to it, because I wouldn't even look in a mirror for... Wow, I haven't really wanted to look into a mirror, even to this day. It's kind of hard, what these drugs did to me, to my skin, and then what happened to my face. It's not easy. It's not easy to look at your own image. It's not easy to look at my image. It's not easy to see. The harm that is visible. And my other boyfriend, Rob, would have said you can wear it like a badge of honor for what you've gone through. But, oh gosh, he was livid at me towards the end of our relationship. And he did something that also is a hit along the same lines of, oh, she's crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm just not. I'm very wise and I'm very brave. And I'm a very spiritual person. I already know that I avoid talking about these things that can be debunked. I did touch on it in my first video. I did say, I found out that, the Mormons, it's really a fraudulent outfit. I get, what did I say? I said, that the Mormons had really nothing to offer. But this is, it's got to come out into the light too, and not by me, because my focus is this true burning issue, that there's silence in the media because they are given money by the pharmaceutical companies to keep running. And in fact, our governments are given money by the pharmaceutical companies. So, they've invested in so much. Yeah, this is it. Several years ago again, so it might have changed, maybe gotten worse. Someone posted the data of the profits from the selling of psychiatric medications and their different names. A very long list. And it became clear that in 1 year, one drug in one country, being America, one drug in 1 year in just one country garnered the pharmaceutical company, whichever one it was, trillions of dollars. One drug. One drug, the profits were trillions of dollars for just 1 year. Profits for 1 year. How many years have gone by since then? How many years preceded that? These guys are outrageously wealthy. So, this ceiling of silence that we're all trying to penetrate and getting nowhere with the media. The media won't handle it. Lawyers won't handle it. I called up, someone gave me a number for lawyers who were offering, help pro bono. Called them, and they said flatly, the young woman lawyer said, "Oh, we never go against psychiatry." And what did I say? Oh, I can't remember really what I said right now. It's stupefying. It's stunning how so many of us are harmed and who have died because of these drugs. How the public sphere is protected from our testimonies. And they're not anecdotal. It's across the board. And they've drugged so many people. Yeah, I'll end soon. I've gone on a long time again, and I don't even know if I'll upload this. Um, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? I went to the Dépanneur, which is a convenience store, if people don't know that. A dépanneur, where you dépanne, meaning if you get a flat, you go in there and get refilled, you know, dépanneur. A flat, meaning you need some fuel, like a Coca-Cola or something. Anyway, so I came out of there, and this young woman pursued me gently. Well, kind of. There were people milling about outside, and she was, you know, close on my heels, but shuffling and saying something, or I thought it was an older woman who was disabled, who was shuffling after me, who was probably wanting money, had a scarf over her head, and you know, one of those masks. I mean, what can you tell about someone's age at that point? You know, I don't know, crow's feet, whatever. Anyway, she pulled her mask down. She spoke with me, and she said that she wanted any kind of coins for her boyfriend who had gotten hit by a car last June, and it was on the front page of Le Devoir. It got a whole story on him, and you know, they just wanted any amount of money would be fine. And I said, you know, this is what I said to her. I said, maybe you think I'm rich, and maybe I'd like to be rich, and maybe I will be rich one day, but right now I'm not. So I really don't have anything to give you. And I, you know, spent my money. It's gone. I spent it in the store, and you know, I just wasn't gonna give it to her. She was heavily sedated, and I asked her. I said, "Is your name Hannah?" And she said, "No, my name is Elizabeth." So they're drugging these young women, and they're in their 30s, and they're uber drugged, and they're shuffling after strangers asking for money. Both Hannah and Elizabeth were on Summerled, the street, Summerled, where the metro store is at one end, and I guess the couche-tard is at another end. And I thought it could be Hannah. Maybe Hannah lost weight, but no. Now Hannah, who's polydrugged, and my old boyfriend Rob had already told me about the troubles with Hannah when the mother of Hannah lived in his building, and Hannah lived with the mother. There was always trouble with Hannah. She was mentally ill, he said. Well, she's not mentally ill, I don't think. She's toxified by these drugs. Well, she was shuffling after me, or running after me, or hobbling after me. When I was at the other end at the metro store, she was wanting money. Was she wanting money for her boyfriend too at the time? Anyway, I don't think I gave Hannah money, but I did say, "Is your name Hannah?" And she said, "Yes, it is." So they've drugged two women in their 30s all over again. Have I opened up a door of opportunity for these two women in their 30s to come off their drugs successfully before they turn 45? I don't know. And yeah, I'm a spiritual person. I have a great deal of faith and patience and long suffering. But enough is enough. Enough is enough is enough is enough. The French lady the other night, I knew she was going to tell Marie the lie that's been infiltrating through the upper floors of this building. This shit's gotta stop, you know. If only someone could go to jail. The one who should be jailed is Dr. Daniel Krause. Because by law in Quebec, he is responsible for these injuries now. Not getting treatment. For his lie. His unethical behavior. So he's retired. Oh, another thing I did recently is flipping through the internet, and I don't know what persuaded me to look up the social worker who was in the same room with Dr. Daniel Krause when he put that lie on my medical file. She knew it was a lie. Yeah, I found her online. I didn't speak with her. I have not pursued these people because I've felt that justice would come for me really, really soon. And that would mean money for lawyers, money for an osteopath, money for the proper help. So, we'll see. Yeah. It's pretty sad. It's pretty heavy. To know that these drugs are harming people and that nothing is being done about it. I could help. I could at least give them some hope, right? Because I am a survivor of psychiatry. Officially 20 years now. The last dose of any psych drug was April 1st, 2001. After a 1-year-long taper supervised by a psychiatric nurse / therapist. And this 1 year was too short. Wasn't long enough. My adrenals collapsed in early 2002, or by the end of 2001, I think. I think by September 2001, I had, adrenal failure. Wow, what does that mean? Why am I still walking? Why am I still alive? Why did I have to go through all this? And why did I know? This truth that psych drugs do harm without it having any kind of impact to break through that ceiling of silence that Big Pharma has bought for itself. I'm going to end with this. And Big Pharma is immune from any vaccine harm that it does by law. Does that apply in Canada? Probably. I know it applies to the United States. A lot more people in the United States than in Canada, but an awful lot of people who are dumbed down on these drugs and zombified and harmed with akathisia, involuntary muscle movement that doesn't go away. Talk about nightmares. Thalidomide was a nightmare. Yeah, well, that was ghastly. I mean, you could make a real horror film out of that, but that really happened. And this is really happening. These drugs are neurotoxins, and they're leaving people with involuntary muscle movement, clinically called akathisia. It's a pretty heavy-duty drug. To be out of you, so-called. Now, these drugs last a very long time, because I know they go deep into the bone marrow if someone is saturated with it long enough, like I was for 11 years in my 30s, in all of my 30s. Wow. So I know that God sees all. Now, is he going to do something about this massive harm to humanity? I don't know. You'd think he would. So there are those who believe that the consciousness of humanity, all told, is that pool of consciousness that is God. So someone, somewhere, has got to raise the consciousness of humanity as to the harms of these drugs. I mean, Dr. Peter Bregan is doing it, seemingly, I guess. And Dr. David Healy, well, he's got somewhat of a handle on how these drugs harm people. Funny how I say people. People. Okay, that's it. Can I upload this, or will I upload this? Yeah, no, I've kind of stockpiled my my place because I'm hoping for bigger, better things. Because, you know, I have a Sri Lankan friend who read my palms, and what she read and what she said she saw has me very hopeful. Okay, good night, good evening, good morning. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen.